Hello and welcome to the Cultured Bumpkin. Tonight we're going to read Edgar Allan Poe. Here we go. All right, so here is one from Edgar Allan Poe called Eldorado. Gaily bedight, a gallant knight, in sunshine and in shadow, had journeyed long, singing a song in search of Eldorado. But he grew old, this knight so bold, and o'er his heart a shadow fell as he found no spot of ground that looked like Eldorado. And as his strength failed him at length, he met a pilgrim's shadow. Shadow, he said, where can it be, this land of Eldorado? Over the mountains of the moon, down the valley of the shadow. Ride, boldly ride, the shade replied, if you seek for Eldorado. There was one that I was going to read that I hadn't done on here before. Eulalie. I dwelt alone in a world of moan, and my soul was a stagnant tide, till the fair and gentle Eulalie became my blushing bride, till the yellow-haired young Eulalie became my smiling bride. Ah, less bright the stars of night than the eyes of the radiant girl, and never a flake that the vapor can make with the moon tints of purple and pearl, can vie with the moon tints of purple and pearl, can vie with the modest Eulalie's most unregarded curl, can compare with the bright-eyed Eulalie's most humble and careless curl. Now doubt, now pain, come never again, for her soul gives me sigh for sigh, and all day long shines bright and strong, Astarte within the sky, while ever to her dear Eulalie upturns her matron eye, while ever to her young Eulalie upturns her violet eye. I said violet, not violent, right? It's like purple. Hope everybody's doing good tonight. If you're joining on YouTube or TikTok, welcome. Good to have you. Hope you're doing well. Here's another one. Here's another sad one. Eulalie was kind of sad. Here is To One in Paradise. Thou wast that all to me, love, for which my soul did pine, a green isle in the sea, love, a fountain and a shrine, all wreathed with fairy fruits and flowers, and all the flowers were mine. Ah, dream too bright to last, ah, starry hope, that didst arise but to be overcast, a voice from out the future cries, on, on, but o'er the past, dim gulf, my spirit hovering lies mute, motionless, aghast. Thank you, Mom of Many, I appreciate that. For alas, alas, with me the light of life is o'er, no more, no more, no more. Such language holds the solemn sea to the sands upon the shore, shall bloom the thunder-blasted tree, or the stricken eagle soar. And all my days are trances, and all my nightly dreams are where thy dark eye glances, and where thy footstep gleams, in what ethereal dances, by what eternal streams. Edgar Allan Poe, To the One in Paradise. Let's see, what else? Annabel Lee. It was many and many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden, she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. I was a child, and she was a child in this kingdom by the sea, but we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabel Lee, with a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted, her and me. And this was the reason that long ago in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabel Lee, so that her high-born kinsman came and bore her away from me to shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of the cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we. And neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea, can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee, and the stars never rise but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And so all the night tide I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in the sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea. If you have a favorite Poe, feel free to drop it in the comments here. There, excuse me. Otherwise, I got this book. It's The Collected Tales and Poems of Edgar Allan Poe, and I'll just be perusing it. And one of these, with fall coming on, autumn coming on, I like Edgar Allan Poe just because of the I guess the dreariness and the blusteriness of a lot of the landscapes and stuff he's got. So I might do a story sometime if anybody really wants a like a short story. Mike could do one of those. Yeah. Let's see, what else has he got? What else has he got? A dream within a dream. Take this kiss upon the brow, and in parting from you now, thus much let me avow. You are not wrong, who deem that my days have been a dream. Yet if hope has flown away, in a night or in a day, in a vision or in none, it is therefore the less gone. All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. I stand amid the roar of a surf-tormented shore, and I hold within my hand grains of the golden sand. How few, yet how they creep through my fingers to the deep, while I weep, while I weep. O God, can I not grasp them with a tighter clasp? O God, can I not save one from the pitiless wave? Is all that we see or seem but a dream within a dream? A dream within a dream. If you're just joining, this is Edgar Allan Poe. Dreamland. By a route obscure and lonely, haunted by ill angels only, where an eidolon named Night on a black throne reigns upright. I have reached these lands but newly from an ultimate dim Thule, from a wild, weird clime that lieth sublime out of space, out of time. Hey, what's up, Lee? Bottomless vales and boundless floods and chasms and caves and titan woods with forms that no man can discover for the dews that drip all over, mountains toppling evermore into seas without a shore, seas that restlessly aspire, surging unto skies of fire, lakes that endlessly outspread their lone waters, lone and dead, their still waters, still and chilly, with the snows of the lolling lily, by the lakes that thus outspread their lone waters, lone and dead, their sad waters, sad and chilly, with the snows of the lolling lily, by the mountains near the river, murmuring lowly, murmuring ever, by the gray woods, by the swamp, where the toad and the newt encamp, by the dismal tarns and pools, where dwell the ghouls, by each spot the most unholy, in each nook most melancholy. There the traveler meets aghast, sheeted memories of the past, shrouded forms that start and sigh as they pass the wanderer by, white-robed forms of friends long given in agony to earth and heaven. For the earth, whose woes are legion, 'tis a peaceful, soothing region. For the spirit that walks in shadow, 'tis an Eldorado. But the traveler traveling through it may not, dare not openly view it. Never its mysteries are exposed to the weak human eye enclosed. So wills its king, who hath forbid the uplifting of the fringed lid, and thus the sad soul that here passes beholds it, but through darkened glasses, by a route obscure and lonely, haunted by ill angels only, where an eidolon named Night on a black throne reigns upright. I have wandered home but newly from this ultimate dim Thule. I don't know, something. Oh yeah, thank you. I drew that. It says, "I'm Poe, but I'm proud." I thought of that too. I thought it was funny. I thought it was clever, so I made a shirt. Yeah, I just like Poe so much, and I don't even like. I wouldn't even consider myself like a fan of Gothic type stuff, but I don't know. I like Poe a lot. Hey, David, what's going on? Hmm. Sorry, just kind of sort of perusing. Evening Star. 'Twas noontide of summer and mid-time of night, and stars in their orbits shone pale through the light of the brighter, cold moon. Mid-planets, her slaves, herself in the heavens, her beam on the waves. I gazed awhile on her cold smile, too cold for me, there passed as a shroud, a fleecy cloud, and I turned away to see proud evening star in thy glory afar, and dearer thy beam shall be, for joy to my heart is the proud part thou bearest in heaven at night, and I more admire thy distant fire than that colder, lowly light. The happiest day. The happiest day, the happiest hour, my seared and blighted heart hath known, the highest hope of pride and power, I feel, hath flown. Of power, said I, yes, such I ween, but they have vanished long, alas. The visions of my youth have been, but let them pass. And pride, what have I now with thee? Another brow may even inherit the venom thou hast poured on me. Be still, my spirit. The happiest day, the happiest hour, mine eyes shall see, have ever seen the brightest glance of pride and power I have been. But were that hope of pride and power now offered with the pain, even then I felt that brightest hour I would not live again. For on its wings was dark alloy, as though it fluttered, it fell, in essence, powerful to destroy a soul that knew it well. To Helen. Helen, thy beauty to me like those Nicean barks of yore that gently o'er a perfumed sea the weary, way-worn wanderer bore to his own native shore. On desperate seas long wont to roam, thy hyacinth hair, thy classic face, thy naiad airs have brought me home to the glory that was Greece and the grandeur that was Rome. Lo, in yon brilliant window niche, how statue-like I see thee stand, the agate lamp within thy hand, ah, Psyche, from the regions which are Holy Land. To Helen. To the river. Fair river, in thy bright, clear flow of crystal wandering water, thou art an emblem of the glow, of beauty, the unhidden heart, the playful maziness of art in old Alberto's daughter. But when within thy waves she looks, which glistens then and trembles, why then the prettiest of brooks her worshipper resembles? For in this heart, as in thy stream, her image deeply lies, his heart which trembles at the beam of her soul-wrenching eyes. Alone. From childhood's hour, I have not been as others were. I have not seen as others saw. I could not bring my passions from a common spring. From the same source I have not taken my sorrow. I could not awaken my heart to joy at the same tone. And all I loved alone. Then, in my childhood, in the dawn of a most stormy life, was drawn from every depth of good and ill the mystery which binds me still. From the torrent or the fountain, from the red cliff of the mountain, from the sun that round me rolled in its autumn tint of gold, from the lightning in the sky as it passed me flying by, from the thunder and the storm and the cloud that took the form when the rest of heaven was blue, of a demon in my view. I will do probably one more, and then we can do if somebody has a request, maybe we can do something else, another author or something. To Isadore. Beneath the vine-clad eaves, whose shadows fall before thy lowly cottage door, under the lilac's tremulous leaves, within thy snowy clasped hands the purple flowers it bore. Last eve in dreams I saw thee stand, like queenly nymphs from fairyland, enchantress of the flowery wand, most beauteous Isadore. And when I bade the dream upon thy spirit flee, thy violet eyes to me upturned did overflowing seem with the deep, untold delight of love's serenity. Thy classic brow like lilies white and pale as the imperial night upon her throne with stars bedight, enthralled my soul to thee. Ah, Ever I behold thy dreamy, passionate eyes, blue as the languid skies hung with the sunset's fringe of gold. Now strangely clear thine image grows, and olden memories are startled from their long repose like shadows on the silent snows, when suddenly the night wind blows where quiet moonlight lies. Like music heard in dreams, like strains of harps unknown, of birds forever flown, audible as the voice of streams that murmur in some leafy dell, I hear thy gentlest tone, and silence cometh with her spell, like that which on my tongue doth dwell, when tremulous in dreams I tell my love to thee alone. In every In every valley heard, floating from tree to tree, less beautiful to me the music of the radiant bird than artless accents such as thine, whose echoes never flee. Ah, how for thy sweet voice I pine, for uttered in thy tones benign, enchantress, this rude name of mine doth seem a melody. It's to Isadore. Actually, let's do The Conqueror Worm. It's another Edgar Allan Poe. Lo, 'tis a gala tonight within the lonesome latter years. An angel throng, bewinged, bedight in veils and drowned in tears, sit in a theatre to see a play of hopes and fears, while the orchestra breathes fitfully the music of the spheres. Mimes in the form of God on high mutter and mumble low, and hither and thither fly, mere puppets they who come and go at bidding of vast, formless things that shift the scenery to and fro, flapping from out their condor wings in visible woe. That motley drama, oh, be sure it shall not be forgot, with its phantom chased forevermore by a crowd that sees it not, through a circle that it through a circle that ever returneth into the self-same spot, and much of madness, and more of sin, and horror the soul of the plot. But see amid the mimic rout a crawling shape intrude, a blood-red thing that writhes from out the scenic solitude. It writhes with mortal pangs, the mimes become its food, and the angels sob at vermin fangs in human gore imbued. Out, out are the lights, out all, and over each quivering form the curtain, a funeral pall, comes down with the rush of a storm, and the angels, all pallid and wan, uprising, unveiling, affirm that the play is the tragedy, man, and its hero, the conqueror worm. Bella Bodum? Thank you. Thank you. However I say your name, I probably um, however I say your name. Let's see. Love the shirt. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Blue Jeep. I drew that, and then I got a guy in Sri Lanka. he like digitized it for me because I don't know how to do that. And then I stuck it on a shirt, and I was like, I like this. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Have you already read The Raven? No, Tina. Would you like to hear it? Kipling, The Reeds at Runnymede. What's going on, man? How's it going? Let's see. Let me check that one out. I do like Yeats. Yeah, I do. Let me see how long that one is. How long is that? With some, let's see. Okay. Too long for tonight, but my favorite Poe work is The Masque of the Red Death. That's a good favorite. And I mean, it is a little bit long, but I don't know. We'll have to see. Everything is going to be all right, Derek Mahon. Let's try. Let's see. Yeah, isn't that cool? I love the Ravens. Like, I love that fact about the Ravens. Yeah, they're in, because they were the Browns, right? They were Cleveland Browns, and they got sold, and or something. Art Modell sold them, and then so they're like, we're going to sell this team, but then we'll start another team called the Browns here. I don't even know how that works, but yeah, I like how they do. I like how they do that in the NFL. Like they pick something sometimes where it's like the San Francisco 49ers, right? I mean, that was a historical event, the 1849 gold rush out in California, Baltimore, the Raven. I like that. I think that's so cool. And then you have like Atlanta Falcons. I don't know what that has to do with anything. Let's see. I love Robert Service. On my YouTube channel, I have the cremation of Sam McGee with sound effects like cold wind and things like that. And then, but I have done that one. And then last night we read, what did we read last night? The shooting of Dan McGrew. We did that one last night. David, who I think is in here tonight, suggested it, and we hadn't read that on here before, and that was a lot of fun. And I'm about to record that and put it on my thing as well. Okay, so let's see who asked for that. Lord Understatement asks for the Reeds of Runnymede. Let's read that one. That one's not too long. The Reeds of Runnymede by Rudyard Kipling. At Runnymede, Runnymede. What say the reeds at Runnymede? The lissom reeds that give and take, that bend so far but never break. They keep the sleepy Thames awake with tales of John at Runnymede. At Runnymede, oh, hear the reeds at Runnymede. You mustn't sell, delay, deny a freeman's right or liberty. It wakes the stubborn Englishry. We saw 'em roused at Runnymede. When through our ranks the barons came, with little thoughts of praise or blame, but resolute to play the game, they lumbered up to Runnymede. And there they launched in solid time the first attack on right divine, the curt, uncompromising sign that settled John at Runnymede. At Runnymede, your rights were won at Runnymede. No freeman shall be fined or bound or dispossessed of freehold ground, except by lawful judgment found and passed upon him by his peers. Forget not, after all these years, the charter signed at Runnymede. And still, when mob or monarch lays too rude a hand on English ways, the whisper wakes, the shudder plays across the reeds at Runnymede. And Thames, that knows the mood of kings and crowds and priests and such like things, rolls deep and dreadful as he brings their warning down from Runnymede. Very cool. Nice little English history for you. Let's see. Okay, so Tina wants the Raven, so we'll do the Raven. Everything is going to be all right. Since that one's a little longer, let's hold off on like 2 seconds on that one. Let's do a couple of the shorter ones first. So we have Derek Mahon. Okay, everything is going to be all right. How should I not be glad to contemplate the clouds clearing beyond the dormer window and a high tide reflected on the ceiling? There will be dying, there will be dying, but there is no need to go into that. The poems flow from the hand unbidden, and the hidden source is the watchful heart. The sun rises in spite of everything, and the far cities are beautiful and bright. I lie here in a riot of sunlight, watching the day break and the clouds flying. Everything is going to be all right. Good one. Let's see. I've got Proofrock is on my YouTube full length. That's a pretty long one. And we, if I wasn't about to do the Raven, we might, but I don't know if we'll do 2 long ones tonight. But if you just have a hankering, I do have it on my YouTube. So let's do the Raven. Lord Understatement, you bet. Davo, that's so cool. New Zealand. Hope you're doing well. It's lovely to have you on. So this next one is, an American classic. NFL teams named after it, as mentioned earlier. The Raven, and maybe old Edgar Allan Poe's greatest, what do you call it? Not greatest achievement, but maybe most known, one of his most known. Anyway, here we go. The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, when I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. Ah, distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken and sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This is it, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. The fact is, I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you." Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping, something louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flint, flirt, and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with a mien of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird, beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore, though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Much I marvelled, this ungainly fowl, to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on that placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, Other friends have flown before, on the morrow he will leave me as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, Nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, Doubtless, said I, what it utters is only stock and store cut from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of nevermore. But the raven still beguiling all my sad soul into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of the bird, and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking that this ominous bird of yore, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking Nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fierce eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er she shall press, nevermore. Then, methought, the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch! I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee respite, and nepenthe from my memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, till this soul with sorrow laden, within the distant Aden, it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked, upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave thy loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadows on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. That was the raven. Let's see. Oh, super cool. Super cool. I'm glad you could see him. That is, Poe's such a great writer. He writes, one of my favorite lines, in the opening is, if I were to write this scene, I would be like, I was sitting by myself. It was kind of a windy night and it was sort of dreary and the fire was crackling and there were ashes flying out and they were crumbling onto the floor. When he says, each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. My gosh, what a way. There's so much detail in that, and yet he said it in like one sentence. That's amazing. So good. Lord Understatement, I appreciate that. Tina, you are very welcome. That's you can't go wrong with that one. It's such a classic. And it's kind of like, in a way, I think everybody can identify with that. Like, everybody's got stuff in their mind that won't leave them alone, probably, or their life in some way. And that's just, I don't know, I like that. It's one of those things, such as is common to man. Now, I don't know. Someone, Larissa, Larissa, you're probably not in here anymore. But I was thinking about reading a short story, possibly. But we could keep doing poetry too. Who's Lenore? Everybody's got a Lenore. A rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore. There is actually a poem called Lenore. Let's see if statue right? No way. What is the connection with Robert Burns? Is there a Scottish population down there, or what's the deal? Because that's really cool. Great poet. I just heard, you want a good time, listen to Billy Connolly read To a Mouse, and about half of it, if you're not Scottish, you're probably not going to understand it any more than I did. I mean, it's so Scottish. He's reading it in dialect or whatever. It's so good and entertaining because Billy Connolly's a funny dude. Alaska, what's up, Eileen? Scotch settlers. Okay, that makes sense. Where I am in the American Southeast, there's a huge, like Scotch presence. Like there's tons of folks that came over from Scotland in the American Southeast, especially. Welsh, like Phillips is a Welsh name. So my family, came from kind of that area, the borderlands of Wales and Scotland. Let me see. I think I've got it. I'm enjoying reading out of this book tonight because I usually read off a pad, but I really like reading out of actual books. Pretty sure Masque of the Red Death. Oh, 269. See how long that one is. I've done it on my YouTube. It's on my short stories playlist. But it's fun to read stuff again. Excuse me. The Masque of the Red Death is not that long. It's really not. It's really not. In this book, it is 1 page, 2, 3, 4.5. That's not very long. It's not very long. Mostly weird Swedish. My great-great-grandfather. Swedes are awesome. Where are you? Like up north somewhere? I don't know. I know, like I know there's some places in Kansas where there's Swedish populations, but most of the ones I know of are like up north. It always fascinates me how immigration affects food, habits, dress, buildings, architecture, dialect. It's fascinating. All right, let's do a short story. We're on Poe tonight, and let's see if I have my little. Oh well. Hopefully I'll make it to the end without needing water. I don't know where my water bottle is. Okay, so let's do this. The Masque of the Red Death by Edgar Allan Poe. The Red Death had long devastated the country. No pestilence had ever been so fatal or so hideous. Blood was its avatar and its seal, the redness and horror of blood. There were sharp pains and sudden dizziness, and then profuse bleeding at the pores with dissolution. The scarlet stains upon the body, and especially upon the face of the victim, were the pest ban which shut him out from the aid and from the sympathy of his fellow man. And the whole seizure, progress, and termination of the disease were the incidents of half an hour. But the Prince Prospero was happy and dauntless and sagacious. When his dominions were half depopulated, he summoned to his presence 1,000 hale and light-hearted friends from among the knights and dames of his court. Good deal. Yes, settle in. Let's do this. It's not that long, really. It's one of his shorter ones. Let's see. Among the knights and dames of his court, and with those retired to the deep seclusion of one of his castellated abbeys. This was an extensive and magnificent structure, the creation of the prince's own eccentric yet august taste. A strong and lofty wall girdled it in. The wall had gates of iron. The courtiers, having entered, brought furnaces and massy hammers and welded the bolts. They resolved to leave means neither of ingress nor egress to the sudden impulses of despair or of a frenzy from within. The abbey was amply provisioned. With such precautions, the courtiers might bid defiance to contagion. The external world could take care of itself. In the meantime, it was folly to grieve or to think. The prince had provided all the appliances of pleasure. There were buffoons, there were improvis, improvisatory, sorry, improvisatory, there were ballet dancers, there were musicians, there was beauty, there was wine. All these and security were within. Without was the Red Death. It was toward the close of the 5th or 6th month of this seclusion, and while the pestilence raged most furiously abroad, that the Prince Prospero entertained his 1,000 friends at a masked ball of the most unusual magnificence. It was a voluptuous scene, that masquerade. But first, let me tell you of the rooms. Excuse me. But first, let me tell you of the rooms in which it was held. Danny, what's going on, man? Just reading a short story here, classic literature, Edgar Allan Poe. Danny is awesome. I love that dude. I love that dude. Man, he's like very much a true brother. You know what I mean? That is a good man. And a quick thing from this break from the story. Danny was we were playing football together. My dad had cancer. My dad was dying. We're driving. And we didn't know each other. Like we didn't know each other. It was our first road trip. And Eris Patty, what's going on, man? And so we start talking and just get to know each other. And he found out that my dad was dying of cancer. And he was like, man, tell me about it. And no one does that. Most people say, oh, I'm sorry, and move on. Danny wanted to hear about it. He wanted to hear about my dad and things like that. So, we got to talking, and, he gave me a hug, and I just felt very loved, you know what I mean? And then we got to the game, and, he's we're taping up our wrists and ankles and stuff. And he grabs a Sharpie, and my dad's name is Randy Phillips, RP. And he writes a big RP on his wrist, and he's like, hey, this is for your dad, man. And man, I just love you. You're a good dude. I will never forget that. Never forget that. Danny versus Kai, right there in the chat. That is a good dude. And I love you. Okay, back to the story. So everybody's shut in to the palace. Everybody's into the abbey inside the mountain, I guess. I don't know. The keep. And then they've thrown away the key, welded the gate shut, having a big party, and they're having a huge masquerade ball. But first, let me tell you of the rooms in which the masquerade ball was held. There were 7, an imperial suite. In many palaces, however, such suites form a long and straight vista, while the folding doors slide back nearly to the walls on either hand, so that the view of the whole extent is scarcely impeded. Here the case was very different, as might have been expected from the Duke's love of the bizarre. The apartments were so irregularly disposed that the vision embraced but little more than one at a time. There was a sharp turn at every 20 or 30 yards, and at each turn, a novel effect. To the right and left, to the middle of each wall, a tall and narrow Gothic window looked out upon a closed corridor which pursued the windings of the suite. These windows were of stained glass, whose color varied in accordance with the prevailing hue of the decorations of the chamber into which it opened. That at the eastern extremity was hung, for example, in blue, and vividly blue were its windows. The second chamber was purple in its ornaments and tapestries, and here the panes were purple. The third was green throughout, and so were the casements. The fourth was furnished and lighted with orange, the fifth with white, the sixth with violet. The 7th apartment was closely shrouded in black velvet tapestries that hung over all the ceiling and down the walls, falling in heavy folds upon a carpet of the same material and hue. But in this chamber only, the color of the windows failed to correspond with the decorations. The panes here were scarlet, a deep blood color. Now, in in no one of the 7 apartments was there any lamp or candelabrum amid the profusion of gold ornaments that lay scattered to and fro or depended from the roof. There was no light of any kind emanating from lamp or candle within the suite of chambers. But in the corridors that followed the suite, there stood, opposite to each window, a heavy tripod bearing a brazier of fire that projected its rays through the tinted glass and so glaringly illumined the room. And thus were pronounced a multitude of gaudy and fantastic appearances. But in the western or black chamber of the effect of the firelight that streamed upon the dark hangings through the blood-tinted panes was ghastly in the extreme, and produced so wild a look upon the countenances of those who entered that there were few of the company bold enough to set foot within its precincts at all. It was in this apartment also that there stood against the western wall a gigantic clock of ebony. Its pendulum swung to and fro with a dull, heavy, monotonous clang. And when the minute hand made the circuit of the face and the hour was to be stricken, there came forth from the brazen lungs of the clock a sound which was clear and loud and deep and exceedingly musical, but of so peculiar a note and emphasis that at each lapse of an hour the musicians of the orchestra were constrained to pause momentarily in their performance to hearken to the sound, and thus the waltzers perforce ceased their evolutions, and there was a brief disconcert of the whole gay company. And while the chimes of the clock yet rang, it was observed that the giddiest grew pale, and the more aged and sedate passed their hands over their brows, as if in confused reverie or meditation. But when the echoes had fully ceased, the light laughter at once pervaded the assembly. The musicians looked at each other and smiled, as if in their own nervousness and folly. Excuse me, as if at their own nervousness and folly, and made whispering vows each to another that the next chiming of the clock should produce in them no similar emotion. And then, after the lapse of 60 minutes, which embrace 3,300 seconds of the time that flies, there came yet another chiming of the clock, and then with the same disconcert and tremulousness and meditation as before. Excuse me. But in spite of these things, it was a gay and magnificent revel. The tastes of the Duke were peculiar. He had a fine eye for colors and effects. He disregarded the decora of mere fashion. His plans were bold and fiery, and his conceptions glowed with barbaric luster. There were some who would have thought him mad. His followers felt that he was not. It was necessary to hear and see and touch him to be sure that he was not. He had directed in great part the movable embellishments of the 7 chambers upon occasion of this great fete. I don't know. I'm terrible. I'm a terrible reader. And it was his own guiding taste which had given character to the masqueraders. Be sure they were grotesque. There were much glare and glitter and piquancy and phantasm, much of which has been seen in Hernani. There were arabesque figures with unsuited limbs and appointments. There were delirious fancies such as the madman fashions. There were much of the beautiful, much of the wanton, much of the bizarre, something of the terrible, and not a little of that which might have excited disgust. To and fro in the 7 chambers there stalked, in fact, a multitude of dreams, and these, the dreams, writhed in and about, taking hue from the rooms, and causing a wild music of the orchestra to seem as the echo of their steps. And anon there strikes the ebony clock which stands in the hall of the velvet, and then for a moment all is still, and all is silent, save the voice of the clock. The dreams are stiff frozen as they stand, but the echoes of the chime die away. They have endured but an instant, and a light, half-subdued laughter floats after them as they depart. And now again the music swells, and the dreams live and writhe to and fro more merrily than ever, taking hue from many-tinted windows throughout which stream the rays from the tripods. But to the chamber which lies most westwardly of the seven, there are now none of the maskers who venture, for the night is waning away, and there flows a ruddier light through the blood-colored panes, and the blackness of the sapal drapery appalls. And to him whose foot falls upon the sable carpet, there comes from the near clock of ebony a muffled peal, more solemnly emphatic than any which reaches their ears, who indulge in the more remote gaieties of the other apartments. But these other apartments were densely crowded, and in them beat feverishly the heart of life. And the revel went whirlingly on, until at length there commenced the sounding of midnight upon the clock. And then the music ceased, as I have told, and the evolutions of the waltzers were quieted, and there was an uneasy cessation of all things as before. And now there were 12 strokes to be sounded by the bell of the clock. And thus it happened, perhaps the more of thought crept, with more of time into meditations of the thoughtful among those that revelled. And thus, too, it happened, perhaps, that before the last echoes of the last chime had utterly sunk into darkness, there were many individuals in the crowd who had found leisure to become aware of the presence of a masked figure, which had arrested the attention. There were many individuals in the crowd who had found leisure to become aware of the presence of a masked figure, which had arrested the attention of no single individual before. And the rumor of this new presence having spread itself whisperingly around, there arose at length from the whole company a buzz or murmur expressive of disapprobation and surprise, then finally of terror, of horror, and of disgust. Lee, you like that, huh? In an assembly of phantasms such as I have painted, it may well be supposed that no ordinary appearance could have excited such sensation. In truth, the masquerade license of the night was nearly unlimited, but the figure in question had out-Heroded Herod, and gone beyond the bounds of even the prince's indefinite decorum. There are chords in the hearts of the most reckless which cannot be touched without emotion. Even with the utterly lost, to whom life and death are equally jests, there are matters of which no jest can be made. The whole company, indeed, seemed now deeply to feel that in the costume and bearing of the stranger neither wit nor propriety existed. The figure was tall and gaunt, and shrouded from head to foot in the habiliments of the grave. The mask which concealed the visage was made so nearly to resemble the countenance of a stiffened corpse that the closest scrutiny must have difficulty in detecting the cheat. And yet all this might have been endured, if not approved, by the mad revellers around, but the murmur had gone so far as to assume the type of the Red Death. His vesture was dabbed in blood, and his broad brow, with which all the features of the face was besprinkled with the scarlet horror. When the eyes of Prince Prospero fell upon the spectral image, which with a slow and solemn movement, as if more fully to sustain its role, stalked to and fro among the waltzers, he was seen to be convulsed in the first moment with a strong shudder, either of terror or disaster, but in the next his brow reddened with rage. "Who dares," he demanded hoarsely of the courtiers who stood near him, "who dares insult us with this blasphemous mockery? Seize him and unmask him, that we may know whom we have to hang." Excuse me. that we may know whom we have to hang at sunrise from the battlements." It was in the eastern or blue chamber in which stood the Prince Prospero as he uttered these words. They rang throughout the 7 rooms loudly and clearly, for the prince was a bold and robust man, and the music had become hushed at the waving of his hand. It was in the blue room where stood the prince, with a group of pale courtiers by his side. At first, as he spoke, there was a slight rushing movement of this group in the direction of the intruder, who at the moment was also near at hand, and now, with deliberate and stately step, made closer approach to the speaker. But from a certain nameless awe with which the mad assumptions of the mummer had inspired the whole party, there were found none who put forth hand to seize him, so that, unimpeded, he passed within a yard of the prince's person. And while the vast assembly, as if with one impulse, shrank from the centers of the room to the walls, he made his way uninterruptedly, but with the same solemn and measured step which had distinguished him from the first, through the blue chamber to the purple, through the purple to the green, through the green to the orange, through this again to the white, and even thence to the violet, ere a decided movement had been made to arrest him. It was then, however, that the Prince Prospero, maddening with rage and the shame of his own momentary cowardice, rushed hurriedly through the 6 chambers, while none followed him on account of a deadly terror that had seized upon all. He bore aloft a drawn dagger, and had approached in rapid impetuosity to within 3 or 4 feet of the retreating figure, when the latter, having attained the extremity of the velvet apartment, turned suddenly and confronted his pursuer. There was a sharp cry, and the dagger dropped, gleaming upon the sable carpet, upon which instantly afterward fell prostrate in death the Prince Prospero. Then, summoning the wild courage of despair, a throng of revelers at once threw themselves into the black apartment, and seizing the mummer, whose tall figure stood erect and motionless within the shadow of the ebony clock, gasped in unutterable horror at finding the grave cerements and corpse-like mask which they handled with so violent a rudeness, untinted by any tangible form. And now was acknowledged the presence of the Red Death. He had come like a thief in the night, and one by one dropped the revelers in the blood-bedewed walls of their revel, and died, each in the despairing posture of his fall. And the life of the ebony clock went out with that of the last of the gay, and the flames of the tripods expired, and darkness and decay and the Red Death held illimitable dominion over all. There we go. The Masque of the Red Death. That's a great story. Thank you. I appreciate it. Glad y'all enjoyed it with my piss pronunciations. Cumberpatch, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, Bella Bottom. I don't know how am I saying your name wrong? I'm probably saying your name wrong. Somebody sick came in there. All right. Well, yeah, that was fun. We've done some longer ones tonight. We did the Raven, which is pretty, decently long. We did the Masque of the Red Death, which is also pretty decently long. So, yeah. I'd like to do the Murders of the Rue Morgue, but there's so much French in it that I would butcher that whole story. What I need to do is go listen to Christopher Lee because he reads it on YouTube and he speaks flawless French, and sort of hear him do it and then try it. That's what I need to do. So maybe do another poem or two. Oh, Sonnet to Science, Edgar Allan Poe. Let's see. Here's why I wore this vest. You know why? So I can do this right here. I can't read it. Okay, now I can. If you ever read some James Herriot, someday I'll be here. Okay. Do you have anything in particular by James Herriot? It would be cool for you to do. Would be cool for you to do Wage Al. You already. Am I reading that wrong? To do what? Oh yeah. Okay. I'm familiar with the book. I haven't read it, but I know what you're talking about. Okay, Sonnet to Science, Edgar Allan Poe. Oh, Bukowski, yeah. I'll do one. I'll do some Bukowski right after Sonnet to Science. Science, true daughter of old time thou art, who alterest all things with thy peering eyes. Why preyest thou thus upon the poet's heart? Vulture, whose wings are dull realities, how should he love thee, or how deem thee wise? Who wouldst not leave him in his wandering to seek for treasure in the jeweled skies, albeit he soared with an undaunted wing? Hast thou not dragged Diana from her car and driven the Hamadryad from the wood to seek a shelter in some happier star? Hast thou not torn the Naiad from her flood, the Elfin from the green grass, and from me the summer dream beneath the tamarind tree? Sonnet to Science. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah. That I've done a lot of Edgar Allan Poe tonight. And like if you're coming in late, I record these and put them on YouTube as a live. So you can I've done a lot of Poe tonight actually. So, if you want to, you could go listen to that. And the cool part is on TikTok, you're just hearing me through an iPhone speaker, whereas on YouTube, you're hearing me through a Neumann, it's a really nice mic. So the audio is better on YouTube. Bukowski. I think my favorite one of his is one called Bluebird. Oh yeah, no worries. But yeah, I actually have probably done more Poe tonight than I have in maybe ever. Okay, Bluebird by Charles Bukowski. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too tough for him. I say, stay in there. I'm not going to let anybody see you. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I pour whiskey on him and inhale cigarette smoke, and the whores and the bartenders and the grocery clerks never know that he's in there. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too tough for him. I say, stay down. Do you want to mess me up? Do you want to screw up the works? Do you want to blow my book sales in Europe? There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too clever. I only let him out at night sometimes when everybody's asleep. I say, I know that you're in there, so don't be sad. Then I put him back, but he's singing a little in there. I haven't quite let him die, and we sleep together like that with our little secret pact, and it's nice enough to make a man weep. But I don't weep. Do you? That is uh, Bluebird, Charles Bukowski, however you say it. All right. Well, my iPhone is about to die. I'm going to stay on my YouTube live a little longer, but my iPhone's dying, so I'm going to cut it off. Y'all have a great night. Thank you for coming by. I appreciate it. It was good meeting new faces, seeing new faces, and reading poetry together. So um, if you're not following, I hope you will. Stay in touch. Y'all be good. Talk to you later. Okie dokie. All right. Well, let's do another. We'll do another poem or two, maybe. And then here's one, another Edgar Allan Poe called Spirits of the Dead. Thy soul shall find itself alone, mid dark thoughts of the gray tombstone, not one of all the crowd to pry into thine hour of secrecy. Be silent in that solitude which is not loneliness, for then the spirits of the dead who stood in life before thee are again in death around thee, and their will shall overshadow thee. Be still. The night, though clear, shall frown, and the stars shall not look down from their high thrones in the heaven with light like hopes to mortal given. But their red orbs without beam to thy weariness shall seem as a burning and a fever which would cling to thee forever. Now are thoughts thou shalt not banish. Now are dreams ne'er to vanish. From thy spirit shall they pass no more, like dewdrops from the grass. The breeze, the breath of God, is still, and the mist upon the hill, shadowy, shadowy yet unbroken, is a symbol and a token, how it hangs upon the trees, a mystery of mysteries. Another one, romance. Romance, who loves to nod and sing with drowsy head and folded wing among the green leaves as they shake far down within some shadowy lake. To me a pained paroquet hath been, a most familiar bird, taught me by alphabet to say, to lisp my very earliest word, while in the wild wood I did lie, a child with a most knowing eye. O late eternal condor years, so shake the very heaven on high, with tumult as they thunder by. I have no time for idle cares, through grazing on the unquiet sky. And when an hour with calmer wings is down upon my spirit flings, it's down upon my spirit flings, that little time with lyre and rhyme to while away forbidden things, my heart would feel to be a crime unless it trembled with the strings. I think I'm going to finish with this one. Is it To Isadore? I really like this one. To Isadore by Edgar Allan Poe. Beneath the vine-clad eaves, excuse me, whose shadows fall before thy lowly cottage door, under the lilac's tremulous leaves, within thy snowy clasped hands, the purple flowers it bore. Last eve in dreams I saw thee stand, like queenly nymphs from fairyland, enchantress of the flowery wand, most beauteous Isadore. And when I bade the dream upon thy spirit flee, thy violet eyes to me upturned did overflowing seem with the deep, untold delight of love's serenity. Thy classic brow, like lilies white and pale as the imperial night upon her throne, with stars bedight, enthralled my soul to thee. Ah, ever I behold thy dreamy, passionate eyes, blue as the languid skies, hung with the sunset's fringe of gold. Now strangely clear thine image grows, and olden memories are startled from their long repose, like shadows on the silent snows when suddenly the night wind blows, where quiet moonlight lies. Like music heard in dreams, like strains of harps unknown, of birds forever flown, audible as the voices of streams that murmur in some leafy dell, I hear thy gentlest tone, and silence cometh with her spell, like that which on my tongue doth dwell, when tremulous in dreams I tell my love to thee alone. In every valley heard, floating from tree to tree, less beautiful to me, the music of the radiant bird than artless accents such as thine, whose echoes never flee. Ah, how for thy sweet voice I pine, for uttered in thy tones benign, enchantress, this rude name of mine doth seem a melody. All right. Well, that was a good time with old Poe. So thank you very much, whether you're on the live currently or at doing the replay. Thank you very much for watching. And if you haven't subscribed, I hope you will. Check out some of my other stuff, some of the longer stuff. If you have a request, drop it in. Leave a comment, and I will try to get to it either in a live or on its own separate, recording, because I like classic literature. So be good. Have a wonderful night.